Hey, what is up guys, it's Justin here, and today I've got the review for you for the HTC One M8. An effort from HTC to further succeed on an already very well-rounded product from last year, the HTC M7. But bear with me if I do get carried away, as I have a lot of great things to say about this device. When you look at the phone at first, you could tell that they've tried to keep a lot of the great things from the M7 on the M8, and in many ways improve upon it. It still features its highly praised metal design, with the metal now wrapping around the edge of the phone. This phone features 90% metal construction as opposed to 70% that we saw on the M7. And is currently available in 3 different finishes, including the gunmetal gray here, which seems to be the most popular at the moment, a gold and also a silver finish. On the inside, you've got pretty much all the specs that you'd expect out of a top-end smartphone in 2014, including a 2.3 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 quad-core processor, with 2GB of RAM, and also the option for 16 and 32GB storage configuration, and an expansion of the micro SD card slot of up to 128GB. The device itself comes in at 9.35mm thick and weighs in at 160 grams, which for some may feel a little bit heavy at first, but you definitely get used to it as you come to enjoy the metal construction. However, one of the complaints I do have about the design is the button placement. They have decided to place the button on the top with the IR blaster under it. However, I do find it is somewhat awkward to reach the top at times, and it does seem extremely flush, making it even harder to find where it is. But I would have liked it if they placed it around in between where the SIM card slot is and the volume rockers. Of course, those would have to be relocated. And I also would have liked it if they had located the volume rockers on the left side, as I find myself a lot of times trying to press the volume on that side, however it isn't there, but that may be because a lot of the phones I have their volume rockers located on the left. And on the front, you've got your 5-inch 1920 by 1080 resolution 441 ppi display, and I gotta say that HTC has definitely nailed it in this category like they did with the M7, providing a very nice sharpness as you may expect out of the resolution, but also an amazing color clarity. And what I mean by that is that this display just gives you a really accurate color representation. There wasn't really anything that was oversaturated like you may see with some of these Samsung phones, and not to say that that's bad, as some people do prefer that, but I felt that the HTC M8 was just able to bring you a great color representation in your videos, for example, your photos, and just using the phone in general. And I definitely enjoyed the 5-inch display. I didn't find it anything too big or too small. It felt just perfect in the hand, and it is also great for one-hand use in general. And now let's move on to the software, and this phone currently runs Android 4.4 KitKat and also the HTC Sense 6 UI, which saw some visual and functional improvements brought to the HTC M8. So I gotta say, out of the box, this phone came out screaming. In the 2 weeks I've had it, I really can't remember a time where I experienced any sort of lag, app crashes, and that is totally to be expected out of the top-end hardware that is seen in this device. So just casually swiping through a home screen, you could see that the phone is extremely snappy, but the first thing we're going to take a closer look at is the blink feed, which is HTC's kind of version of Flipboard that is located on your home screen. This is located in the same place towards the left as you would find My Magazine on the Samsung phones and Google Now on the Nexus line of devices, and it is pretty much Flipboard on your home screen. You can add all your favorite sources, subjects, topics, stuff like that, and also add them directly to read it later if you have an account on that. And it is kind of HTC's interpretation of how they would like you to consume media, and it makes it very easy for you to select different services, your social medias, and also the Fitbit integration if you do use one of those to be able to track your daily activity directly from your home screen. You can see that there's a whole range of topics, environment, gaming, technology, basic news, all sorts of stuff like that. But just going through the home screen once again, it makes it very easy for you to edit your different widgets, apps, and by pinching in from 2 directions, you can change your shortcuts, which I actually like the way that HTC has done that. It's much easier than going to your app drawer and dragging things at once. Being able to have a menu for that just makes it so easy, and there's also your recent running apps. You can close them all at once now with the HTC Sense 6. Your notification tab is very clean as well, and you also have your quick toggle settings in a separate menu. And what I really like that HTC has done is they have kept a lot of the things that personally I have and many people have enjoyed from Nexus, and also integrated certain things that they have done, and many of which I feel is for the good. So scrolling through our settings, I have to say I really enjoy the flat and clean layout of the settings menu. It makes it very easy to be able to access all these settings you need to, of course. You can also edit the color schemes under the personalization, so it definitely gives you a nice range of customizability that you come to enjoy from Android. Next up is a feature called Motion Launch, which is probably borrowed from LG. Double tap to wake, double tap to sleep, slide it from the bottom in order to take it directly to your home screen, and when your device is in sleep and you swipe it from the left, it will take you directly to Blink Feed. So something I really like. However, I did find that a lot of times it activated itself in my pocket. But as a whole, I have to say that although HTC Sense and Blink Feed isn't necessarily for everyone, for me at least, I was actually a huge fan of it, and I would actually even prefer it over a Google Play edition of the HTC One. But it goes without saying that with the top-end specs and the Snapdragon 801 processor powering up this device, you will notice that in everyday tasks, the phone is able to handle everything, no problem, and even stuff like games, in this case Real Racing 3, that you could call graphic intensive, it really has no problem handling this whatsoever. So I think that the HTC One M8 in terms of performance has done an amazing job, and to date, in the past 2 weeks I've had it, I really haven't noticed any point where it was struggling to handle something. So up to now in this review, I've pretty much been saying all great things about this phone, but now comes to one of the drawbacks I feel about the HTC One M8, and that is definitely the rear-facing camera. HTC has decided to go with their ultra pixel camera once again, so instead of going with a higher megapixel count and a smaller pixel size, they have gone with a lower megapixel count of 4 megapixels, but instead having a larger pixel size, which comes in at 2 microns as opposed to 1.4 or 1.6 microns that you will see in higher megapixel smartphone cameras, which is said to give you much better low light performance, which it does. However, you do definitely see some sacrifices when it comes to the overall detail and clarity of certain images. And also not to forget the dual camera, which captures some depth information to allow you to add some cool focus effects after you take the image, which I'll go in more depth later. So although they give you your auto functions, which I guess majority of people will be using, for people out there who want to get a little bit more out of their camera by customization, they can also change the white balance, your ISO. You have different modes under the menu as well, such as landscape, macro, portrait, stuff like that. And going further into your settings, you have your basic settings such as your timer, volume button options, where to save the image to, review duration, camera options such as touch capture, auto smile, and stuff like that. Aside from that, you really have a basic interface there. You have your flash on the corner, and in order to switch cameras, you swipe from the bottom of the screen or the top of the screen while in landscape mode, and that will switch over to the front-facing camera or switch back. And I'm also a pretty big fan of the grid where you have all your different options there. I think it looks really clean, and I'm a huge fan of that. Very easy to be able to select it, and they've hysterically named it selfie mode instead of the front-facing camera. And of course, you also have your Zoe, your dual capture, which you can capture from the front and back-facing camera, a function that we saw on the Samsung Galaxy S4 at first. And also the last mode you've got is the Pan 360, which allows you to take some 360-degree spherical images, kind of like Photosphere we've seen on the Nexus line of devices. So like I said about the dual camera, it will capture depth information with every image, and it allows you to go into it once again and refocus on the subject you had intended to if perhaps you didn't focus on what you wanted to the first time using the U-focus function, and at times it may seem artificial, but in certain conditions it works very well. There's also the foregrounder effect. These are just some fun effects. It will add some cool things using the depth information once again. And you also have your seasons, just have some cool things floating around there. So it's more of something that you just play around with. And I guess really the only thing that I would find practical at times is a U-focus function or possibly the 3D effect. So now we're going to take a look at some real images taken from this phone. I'm just going to show you guys a few, and if you haven't already, be sure to check out some of my comparisons where I compared the camera as well, and also my dedicated camera test. But I have to say in general, when you compared it to other phones, the camera was just much flatter, the image that it came out, and at times it almost seemed somewhat inconsistent, but other than that, it was still able to get a decent shot. However, it is said to be a downside of the HTC One. And here's just a look at the 5 megapixel front facing camera. So now taking a look at the video quality, I know some people would have wished for 4K video recording capability on the HTC One. Unfortunately, we did not get that. The 1080p video quality, again, you would really have to judge for yourself and take a look at the comparisons compared to some other phones on the market to really decide whether this takes good video quality or not. Perhaps one of the most compelling features of the HTC One is its boom sound speakers. They sound absolutely amazing, and you really have to experience these in person to notice that there's no other phone out there that has speakers nearly as good as the HTC One has. So let's just give you guys a quick test. Another one of the things I loved about the HTC One is its battery life, and although 2800 mAh compared to any other flagship phone out in the market may not seem like a drastic jump from anything, it definitely was able to get me through 1 if not 2 days, and that is a lot thanks to its power saving technologies. They also have your power saving mode and also the newly introduced ultra power saving mode in critical events where you will need battery, however you don't have much left. But I also found this device to charge up very fast with HTC's quick charge technology. So when it came to the battery life, of course with any phone, no matter what the power is, the battery is going to be the most important, as without it the phone is pretty much useless. I feel that HTC has nailed it in this category. But aside from that, that is about it of my review on the HTC One M8, and you can tell I really love this phone. There's just so many great things to say about it, and aside from the camera, which I found to be one of the bigger setbacks of the phone, I really have to love most of the other things that they have done with the M8. In fact, it is my favorite Android phone at the moment. However, we're still early in the year and we still have tons of phones, including the Samsung Galaxy S5, the Oppo Find 7, the Nexus line, the new Moto line, and of course the iPhones to review. So I definitely look forward to that, but I gotta say, you've got my recommendation for the HTC One M8, and I'll see you all in the next video.